Hi, this is Erika of the Knit Kind podcast and Grapefruit and Gardenia Designs. I haven't remembered to say on many podcasts recently, so I'm going to say it right at the beginning. If you do like the content, please consider a like, subscribe, share, so that we can help get the word out to like-minded folks who want to sit around, talk about fiber arts, mostly knitting, under the premise of kindness and just all kinds of topics. A lot of focus on some farm yarn, some woolly wools, but not exclusively, and spinning and some other things. So welcome. Thank you for returning if you have watched the podcast before, and if you're new, welcome. I hope that you enjoy it. Everyone is wanted here, different opinions, just respectful, and a place to learn and grow and share different ideas and thoughts. So let's see. I came and left a short catch up before what was school vacation week in Massachusetts, and it feels like we have had a whole lot since then, and it's really only been 2 weeks. So for one, if my voice and my sound sounds good today, thank you to Sue. I am trying out the new microphone for the first time, and I hope it will make a nice big difference. And let's just get on with it. What I have here is the recently released Crossed Paths beanie and cowl. So this is the beanie. Just a nice little, fits just over your ears. Of course, you can make it a little bit shorter, a little bit longer if you'd like. And the cowl was actually the first one I started with just to play with the yarn. So if you can see here, it's extremely subtle, but see how if I turn this, you can see it goes from like a light minty green to a pink. It's like an opalescence and some really nice texture. So what I did, the yarn I picked up from Knit or Dye Peaked Mountain Homestead, and I wanted to play with it. It is a worsted weight yarn. It's woolen spun, a 3-ply single spun at Green Mountain Spinnery. And I think I got it at New Hampshire Sheep and Wool last year. And so what I did, this only took about, for the contrast color, about half of one skein for the cowl and the hat combined. I'll show you how much I had left over, in fact. I still have this much left of just one skein after making both the cowl and the hat. So it's in my project notes in terms of weighing it, but I'm fairly confident, without looking off the top of my head, that you could get 2 sets out of one skein for the contrast color. Again, it might depend what size you're making and so on, but there's a lot of yarn here, and it's very lightweight because it is woolen spun. It's very soft. It is Vermont wool. Let's see if I have it right here for you. I do. Hold on one second. Yeah, so out of 132 grams to start, I have 65 grams remaining, so about half. It starts with 270 yards. Anyway, what I wanted to tell you is that it is fine Shetland and Finn wool. So this is the Moon Shadow variegated. And because I work with these small farm yarns, I wanted to do a couple things. I wanted to give you other alternatives. The brown in this is actually hand spun. You can use the solid that they have as your main color, or another alternative is that I worked one up in Green Mountain Spinnery's Mountain Mohair. So this is a yarn with the same construction, but different breeds and different colorways. So, sorry, it's been a long 2 weeks. We'll talk about that in a second. But these are going to be pretty much in solids that you're going to see, and this will have the variegated. Am I showing you right at the back, right at the seam? I actually, for people who like to geek out about this stuff a little bit, it takes me a second now to find, especially in this one. Oh, there it is. So there's the jog. It's sort of hidden between two. I did my best to hide where the jog would be. I love the crown. I think that is one of the things that made the hat special. Let me show you on this one. You might see the contrast a little bit more. I just thought it was a really pretty shaping to do in pattern for the crown. So, Crossed Paths, I named it based on the fact that these are crossed stitches, and the idea being that we cross paths with so many people at the fiber festivals that we see over and over, and they either slowly or quickly become friends, whether you consider them fiber friends or friends under the big umbrella. I just wanted to pick a stitch that simply showed off some beautiful yarn and represented those connections that we make at fiber shows. So Cross Paths hat and beanie, they're available in Ravelry. It is one pattern for both. So when you purchase the pattern, you're going to get the pattern for the hat and the cowl. I don't do a whole lot of these simple, like pick one stitch pattern and do a cowl with no shaping and a hat. And so for this one, I wanted to give you a little bonus special, I guess, of putting them both in one pattern. So you will see that. You will get them together in one document. And through February 28th, hopefully I'll get this posted, you can use the code Blizzard and have 20% off of the pattern. So that's Crossed Paths with the Knit or Dye and the Mountain Mohair from Green Mountain Spinnery. And then there are 2 other suggested yarns in there if you happen to be going to some fiber shows in New England that are folks you might find who are also spun at the spinnery in the same way, in the same weight yarn, but different breeds. You might get a slightly different gauge, but close enough. The sizes of the hat are for the whole family through, I think, toddler through extra large adult. And then the cowl has 3 sizes, but of course if you want it a little bigger or smaller, just adjust by the repeat. Okay. That's that. So where have I been? Like I said, it's only been 2 weeks, but it feels like it has been 2 months because I recorded for you right before school break, and we were heading as a family, which I didn't share on here. We were heading actually out of the country, which I have not done since my son was born, and he's just turned 10. So it has been a long time since I've left the country. We had the opportunity to travel with my husband, who was traveling for business, and we had the opportunity to join him and go down to Mexico for a few days. Do I look like I had a little sun before the blizzard hit? We did. We had some beautiful weather. We were in the pool. We were just disconnected and enjoyed it. It was great. It was a little refresh. For those of you who are here and we were in Mexico and wondering, with all of the unrest that has been there since last weekend, we did come home just before that happened. My thoughts are certainly with people who were there and who are still there, who, for people who live there, that's a everyday reality. And I don't mean that that's happening all the time, but I mean, they're not coming home. They're not just waiting to fly out, who are there for vacation. So, no matter where in the world things are happening that are unsettled, certainly thinking of people wherever they are. So we did make it home safely. That was good. We also made it home in the middle of one snowy ice storm that was pretty small. We had about a day reprieve to go get some groceries, and then we had the blizzard. So we are west of Boston. We did not get the worst of it, but where my parents are, that was pretty much the jackpot area. They are between the Fall River area, which was the highest total I saw with 41, and Providence area, which I think was just shy of 40 inches in one storm, which is insane for us. I think anything more than like 12 inches is a big storm. Anything more than 18 to 24 is a huge storm, and anything over 30 is just like catastrophic. So my parents were staying with us. They had a cat sat for us, for our elderly cat, while we were in Mexico. We came home, we said stay put. They had some appointments that we were trying to keep for the next week, and we all just hunkered down. We didn't lose power. We were very, very fortunate where I am in that it's just a mess and it's dangerous to go around corners, and the kids did have a few extra days off of school. But where my parents are and are going back to today, they are still off of school. I'll bring it up now because, we've met so many knitters during Knit for Food who have said whoever thought that World Central Kitchen would be in their area in the United States, wherever it is, whatever they're going through. Well, World Central Kitchen is on Cape Cod right now, making, I think, between 4,000 and 7,000 hot meals a day. There are still areas without power. There are still areas that blocks have not been plowed. So Fall River is an area that I grew up going to pretty frequently for medical appointments and things. And they have whole streets, probably blocks, I don't know exactly how it's laid out, where they're showing people who desperately need to get to work. There are a lot of people who are shift workers. They can't afford to stay home. Some of them, one woman on the news said she had a new job. She had to get to it. She couldn't call out one more day. And they're literally out with shovels and snow blowers trying to clear their roads, not just their driveways. So World Central Kitchen, thank you for being on Cape Cod, Massachusetts. And if you haven't given to Knit for Food in the past and you think it won't affect you, I invite you to join us this year, support us. Maybe it's a $5 gift, and it's just something to show your support for what they are doing and have always done internationally and in places you might never expect that are in your own backyard. So on that note, I will shift and say, before I forget, I promised you we were doing a little giveaway here. So anyone who had commented Craftivist, I put into a random number generator, and Renee Simons 9005, contact me. Once I post this, I'll wait a couple of weeks and hopefully I'll hear from you sooner, but in case not, you are the winner of the book. I will get it in the mail to you, and as soon as the mail gets out of this blizzard area, it will be on its way to you, and I hope you enjoy it. Okay, so school vacation is over, finally, with extensions, and travel is over for now. I do have some more travel coming out. My fingers are crossed. I will talk about it afterwards to make sure it happens first. So what is on my needles, and what did I bring with me to Mexico to knit? Well, I knew it was going to be warm, or I hoped it was going to be warm. And so what I did is I looked through my queue, I looked through my patterns that I had gotten, and I looked through my yarn, and I waited till something struck me as something I would want to do for warm weather knitting. And so I have this cast on. It's really about the yarn here. So see these pretty colors? And it just feels really nice. This is a blend of wool, cotton, and linen. And the colorway is Summer in the City, which is inspired by a Van Gogh painting. And that is dyed by Anu of the Unruly Stitch, which is one of my local yarn shops. And Anu was an art history major, as was I, so I loved the fact that she dyed it after that. And this was one when she first started that caught my eye. It was colors I really love, like something in the brownie orange family with something in the blue family. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about how I alternated skeins. I'll tell you a little bit about what the pattern is and why I chose it. And it was just fun to knit on by the pool and not too hot in my lap. So the pattern is the Sabai top, but not the one that is often trending that's more of a tank top. This is actually one that has long sleeves, although I think I'm making mine short sleeved. So it's knit, I started with short rows. I will say, let's see if I can slide this on. Okay, so there's the short rows at the beginning are optional, and I cannot imagine not doing them, because if you don't do the short rows, this is going to be right up against your neck. And I don't think, at least for me, that would be what I would want. I do like a boat neck, and I don't mind something close to my neck, but this is even with the short rows. I know it's over my vest, but you can kind of get a feel for it. And so you work the short rows. There's this little seam that goes right down your shoulder. It's not an actual seam, but like a shaping seam. And then you continue down the front. And so I think I'm going to make mine, if you see just like this, I think I'm just going to keep it without the sleeves. I'll decide later, But I like the idea of having this just be kind of like a cap sleeve. And it'll be a great weight for like a summer top. Not when it's the hottest, but you know, when it's warm, it'll be great, I think, still. And I like that it gives some coverage up here, because if I do get sunburn, this is where I tend to get sunburn. So I'll tell you a few other things about this. This is hand-dyed yarn. And so I did think about, did I want to alternate skeins, and how did I want to alternate skeins? So I cast on and I did the short rows with just one skein. So if you look at the back here, you can kind of tell there's like a certain amount of clarity through this area before it gets a little bit darker in the back. And that area there is one skein. On the front, it doesn't reach down quite as far because it's the short rows, but kind of in this area here. And then what I decided to do is in the rest of the section where there is shaping here along the shoulder, I alternated skeins and I just carried it up. I didn't do any kind of helical knitting or anything. I just carried it on the inside. So what does that look like? That looks like this on the inside, just a little twist at the beginning of round. And I did that until I started knitting flat for the front and back. And what I decided to do is you can sort of see here, it blends very nicely, but there are some sections that are a little darker and some are a little lighter. So I used the darker one on my back and I'm using the lighter one on my front, at least through the bust area. This is probably way more than most people are thinking about. You don't need to do it. But by working the flat part and not alternating, I'm not getting any pooling. That's what I'm keeping an eye out for. So, you know, just a little tip if that's something you're thinking about. If I started getting pooling here, I would start alternating again. But I am not getting pooling, so I am just working now the front. See how it's like a little darker in this area? That's where I was alternating. Then it gets lighter in this area again. It's very, very subtle. But that's the effect that I wanted. And so once I come down here and I join in the round again to work the body, I will probably use either helical knitting or I'll just start switching at the beginning of round again. And that's it. It's mindless, especially once you're through the shaping, but even the shaping was very easy. And it's just a great knit to have. I probably won't finish this one before my other trip, so it'll be another good one to have on the needles for that. And to answer anyone's question who's wondering about traveling to Mexico with knitting needles, I used short wooden Luca, Likey, however you like to pronounce them, the short tip needles that are driftwood. And for going through airport security, I took them off of the cable and I had them in a pencil case. That was the tip I was given. It worked well. I didn't have any of them taken, but I did not try to go through with metal needles and I didn't try to go through with longer needles. So travel tip, I guess. Haven't given travel tips in a very long time, except for maybe to Martha's Vineyard or Vermont. Okay, so that is that Sabai top. And I do probably have enough yarn that I have the flexibility if I want to make it long sleeves or 3/4 sleeves, but that is not my intention at this time. While I'm thinking of it, let me tell you what I'm wearing. We have had crazy blizzard here, and today feels like spring in comparison. So I took out the prototype of my Roslyn vest. Let me show you. It has a little slip stitch pattern down here, and this particular version is cropped. Split hem, little faux kind of seam up the side. Now, this is the prototype. A few things changed between now and the final version, but not many. It's still very, very similar. The neckline dropped a little bit. I changed the type of increase I used, and the depth of the armhole changed a little bit, and I made the pattern longer, not cropped. But essentially, most people would not know the difference looking at this. It's a fine example of the vest, and it's a great pattern for in-between seasons or a layering piece for the winter. Believe it or not, this is actually a bulky yarn, so it knits up crazy fast. And I'd say you can work it in like a heavy Aran yarn as well. Off the top of my head, maybe a 15 stitch gauge. You'll see it, I'll link it below, but it's a fun little in-between season piece, and it's perfect for today. And I love that it was in the pink. This yarn is one that I purchased at the Wayland Winter Farmers Markets when I first went to it for the Farm Fiber Days. It is by Dorchester Farms, who I don't think is attending this year and hasn't attended in a while. They seem to sort of be winding down. But I spun some fiber from them. I had some yarn from them. It was a really, really good value, and it was really pretty and a nice weight to work with. So I enjoyed that. When I published the vest, I published it in Brooklyn Tweed. They're no longer around. I did another version in So Happy Jane's bulky yarn. She's not doing bulky anymore. But I will tell you that if you have any heavy Aran or light bulky weight yarn, it looks really cool in a whole bunch of different yarn types. There's a farm in Vermont called Hands and Heart Farm. It looks beautiful in her Catherine Knox's fiber. There's a bunch I've seen at my local yarn store. I would be happy to point you in the direction of some bulkier yarns. So wrapping that back together with the Wayland Winter Farmers Market, March 8th is coming up so quickly, it's hard to believe. A reminder that I will be at the Southeastern New England Fiber Shed table, and I will be there with Juliette Picot, who is another local designer, and with Hudson Valley Textile Project. So what we're going to do is have a table set up where you can see some local designs. You can see some designs and samples that we've done in different yarn from vendors who are at Wayland. And you can also learn more about and take the pledge, if you'd like, to knit a Rhinebeck sweater for good or a sweater for good, which my friend Kelly and I are doing a distinct vlog throughout the year about our experience with. And Kelly is going to join us from 11:30 to 12:30. She has to leave promptly, but 11:30 to 12:30. If you want to come by in Wayland at Russell's Garden Center on March 8th, and show us either your plans. You might have yarn you just bought, you might have a pattern picked out, you might have a work in progress, or maybe you've finished something. If you want to show us what you've been working on, we would love to share that on our podcast as well. Either a still picture or a few sound bites of a video clip that you would like to tell us what you're working on. We'd love to hear from you. We want this to really be a community experience. And if you have questions about working with yarns, local yarns or local wools, or pairing them with a pattern, we would love for you to stop by the table also. And we'd be happy to chat with you about things that we see or ideas that we have, or help answer your questions if you're looking to pair a certain type of wool with a pattern and what might work well. Maybe you're looking at a long wool and you're not sure what stitch patterns would look best. We'd love to see you there and chat with you a little bit about that and hear about your plans. Okay, so I have a few other things. If you remember, I told you I was going to be casting on the last word vest. I really wanted to take that to Mexico, but I really didn't want to have my needles taken. So that waited for me to get back, and I did some blizzard knitting on that. So this is the Ashen yarn from Ross Farm. Thea Coleman did the design for Last Word Vest, and another pattern that she featured this week as one that would be great for Ashen, and she is offering a sale on those patterns of hers. You need to go to Thea's Instagram account if you want to see that, but she's offering a discount on her patterns so that you can get yarn from Amy at Ross Farm, because she still has this beautiful Ashen yarn in stock. So here is how far I've gotten. Actually pretty far. This yarn, I'm not telling you because I want you to support Amy, although that would be great. This yarn is awesome, and it took me a little while to get there. So the pattern here, see if I can this is a dark yarn, so the pattern's going to look a little bit subtle, and especially now it's not blocked yet. But if you can see, it is like a lace pattern with also some ribbing type texture to it. So I won't even say I struggled. I chose a size. I don't know if I ended up choosing the size that I'm going to want in the end, but I'll tell you why I chose the size that I did. And I know I'm going to be happy with it regardless. It was a little tricky for me because I was really between two sizes for this one for what I'd want. And if you look at this bottom, this is the 2x2 ribbing. Watch. This is so stretchy. The whole thing is really stretchy. I am in the phase of life where I have gained a good amount of weight in the past 2 years. It's a struggle, but I'm only bring it up because when you're so used to knitting a certain size and then you're not sure if that's the size to knit anymore, it gets a little bit trickier, right? Our bodies change and sometimes our heads and our knitting take a little while to catch up. So I couldn't decide whether to knit the 40-inch bust or the 45-inch bust for this because I wanted some ease on it. And I decided to knit the 45-inch bust, so that's the size 3 in the pattern. But I liked my fabric better on a smaller needle, and so I thought that that would probably ultimately tighten up my gauge just a little bit, but maybe just enough to get me more to like the 42, which is what I would ideally like. I did do a gauge swatch. I know my knitting changes a little bit throughout the body. I didn't overly sweat it. I did put this on barber cords, pull it up over my body, and I loved how it fit over like the hip and like top of your jean line area as well as over my stomach. I think it gets tricky for me because up here I don't have like, I'm proportional but curvy. So in the shoulder and upper chest area, that might be where it starts to feel a little too big for me. So I'm going to have to keep an eye on that and figure something out. I might even size down another needle size up there if it doesn't look awkward. I can't really decide for sure. But I do like how the bottom fits. It stretches a ton. And I don't really need it to stretch. So I don't know. We will see. Stay tuned. This is what happens when all of you knit patterns, right? And as designers, we do our best to give you a ton of information, which Thea does in this pattern. She tells you, if you actually look at the sides, it's a little bit hard to see, but there's like this stockinette panel that has pearls on either side, and then there's the lace type pattern in between. So you can adjust the number of stitches here. In hindsight, maybe I could have done that, but I have really big hips proportionally. So I like it to be bigger over my hips. I am going to make mine a little bit longer, so I want it to have that. I'm not going to make it cropped. And I could decrease at the waistline and then increase again, but we'll see. Stay tuned. What I do want to reiterate, and I started with, is just how awesome this yarn is. So I am even thinking about giving other people an opportunity first, but I am even thinking about possibly putting a sweater quantity in stash for another day because I really love it. It's Wensleydale. It is a splurge yarn. It is from the UK, and Amy works with a specific flock. So this comes from a very specific flock. It's spun, and then she sells it through Ross Farm. And one other thing about it, as we talk, I think maybe Kelly and I will talk a little bit more. People have different comfort levels with VM or vegetable matter in your farm yarn. And this has remarkably little. Like every once in a while, there's a little fleck, but almost none. So for those of you who, like, this is a rustic yarn, but to your hand, once you're working with it, not when you first get those skeins and you feel it, it feels rustic. But once you start working with it, just in your hands, it softens up a ton. So you put it against your neck, and actually, right now, this feels quite soft against my neck. There are times I've been trying to do that and see what people would think. And I think when you have like the pattern here, that has a texture to it as well. So you put that against your neck and you can feel the rusticness of it, but with softness. If you put the ribbing up, I don't know, in certain sections it feels softer to me. Anyway, it's a gorgeous, gorgeous yarn to knit with. One of the other things that I'll say about the pattern is it's really worked out to be a process knit for me. I do want the product, and I'm excited to see, especially once I get up here and figure that part out. I'm excited to wear it. But I will say I have kind of enjoyed the fact that when you're not on more of a rest round, so I consider the rest rounds to be just the knit and purls, and the ones that have the yarn overs and the decreases are a little bit more active. Those active rounds are not fast for me. I'm not a fast knitter in general, but the sequence of yarn overs and the type of decrease and then going back to purls, those are pretty slow rounds for me, and I'm enjoying every single one of them. So what's interesting is, the reason I got this yarn, I got it at Rhinebeck, was to support Amy for everything that they had, and Melinda for everything they'd already been through before the fire, and then after the fire I cast on. And there's something about that it's a more meaningful knit anyway. And now having it take longer on those rounds is something that I'm actually really appreciating. So I don't know why that feels, it took me a long time to share that, but it's kind of like savoring the knitting and the yarn, and also knowing that there's more meaning layered into this piece as I'm working on it now. And I can't stop squishing it. It's so good. So I love a dark natural. I mean, look at this color. So I don't know why, but I am really maybe trying to tempt you, because like I said, it's a splurge yarn for sure. I think I have 5 skeins for the vest, and I was looking at it, and if I really want a sweater's quantity, I've got to have 7 skeins and maybe 8 to be safe. But it is one that if there's some left, then I'm thinking about getting that, squirreling it away a little bit, because it just feels so good and it's beautiful. All right. I hope that wasn't too much for you. But happy to help continue to spread the word about that remaining yarn. I had shown you, doesn't it look pretty in that light? I had shown you my latest spin last time, and now it is fully dry. So last time I showed it to you, it was still a little bit damp. And this is the Port Fiber Luxury spin that I did. It just feels so nice to touch. It is silk and I think yak, baby yak. It's just really beautiful, and I'm excited to have it finished. I'm excited how the color came out, how I sort of told you. So I've got these areas that the pink is over the pink more so, and the mossy, greeny brown is over itself. And then there's little areas where sort of that, I don't know what we'd call it, it's a lighter color, almost like a gold in there. And it just came out really beautifully, and I want to continue to not only think about, but actually knit with my hand spun more. So we'll see. Lots of things coming in the next year. Some intentional designs, maybe slowing down a little bit on designing and working with some hand spun, or maybe designing things for hand spun, because there's not enough time to do it all, and I want to do it all. I will end with one more thing, which is I have talked to you before about the Farm and Fiber knits. I wanted to mention it again because they are now coming out quarterly, so 4 times a year instead of once a year, with a print copy. And there's a ton of digital content. So I don't know, if you'd like to have something in your hands, I think it's great that they're going to do this 4 times a year now. I don't have any affiliation or anything like that, but I want them to keep doing what they're doing. And so I wanted to share that with you as one more recommendation. Knit kindly, live kindly. If I don't see you here before Wayland and you have a chance to come to Wayland, I hope you will. And I hope you'll maybe consider picking up the cross pads or the Rosalind vest pattern. In the meantime, supporting Knit for Food. do something nice for a neighbor today, do something nice for yourself today or a family member. Remember, these are continuing to be very, very difficult, challenging times in so many ways, and it's easy to get, I don't know. It's easy to feel overwhelmed by that, and it's also important to have joy in your life. It's important to balance all of those things, reality, and trying to do things that are helpful and also do things that are joyful. So I hope that you have the opportunity to do all of that and that I see you again soon. Thanks so much for watching.